Bonjour à tous, c'est tous mes français. Okay, let's start. Have you ever skipped a retrospective in your team? Or maybe you're not doing feedback cycles at all in your team? Have you ever been overloaded with work? Overwhelmed? Feeling like maybe drowning in all the work? Or maybe did it happen that you overloaded yourself at times? Did it ever happen to you that you have been talked down with your ideas, your suggestions, your contributions? Or that you maybe also talked somebody's contributions or ideas down? Did it ever happen that you did not feel seen with your ideas? Well, I think you all are mostly here for the sustainable pace, I guess. And I promised a definition for it. And I have to say, a definition, because there's no such thing as the one definition. I digged a bit, and let's look at one pretty well-known source first. Pretty old already, at least what I deem as old. It's from the Agile Manifesto. And there it says that we want to maintain a constant pace indefinitely and kind of together. So sponsors, developers, users, I said together. Let's have a look what that together can mean. And this is my very simplified working model of an organizational system. The three different levels I see here are the whole company or the whole organization. And then we have a look on one team while also being aware that there are other teams. So this is why it's teams level. And the third level we could look at it is looking at individuals. You, me, everybody, every human being that is part of one organization. I said very simplified, and it's still a working model, but we will come back to that today. I want to very briefly look now one step beyond our usual realm of work, beyond IT and organizations we are in, assuming we are part of one or maybe more organizations if we're doing freelance work or consulting work. So if we look beyond this model, this small mental model, and I did a bit research just on Wikipedia here, it gets pretty huge. If we look for sustainability out there, we find different models again. Surprise. What they all have in common is they have aspects of social, economic, and environmental parts. And thinking about going at a constant pace, indefinitely, together, at that level of humankind is huge. At least for me, it feels huge. It can feel overwhelming, and it can feel frightening. It can feel numbing. Maybe we don't want to look at that, and that's fine, okay. And to regulate that, awareness for our emotions and our needs is essential, in my point of view. Zooming in again into what I assume is our typical realm in our professional life, our professional agency, the organizational context. Then awareness for emotions and needs is also essential for us as being part of this organizational system. But awareness for what we feel and what we need sounds simple, right? We are all humans, we should know what we need and what we feel. But it's not always easy to be done. And it gets even harder when we are stressed, when there are stressors laying on us like a huge weight. It could be current stress in our current life, like at work environment, family environment, friends, whatever, maybe what's happening in the world right now. It also could be, and often is, stress coming from the past. So experiences we have had that are still somehow valid for our thinking machines up there today. So all sorts of stressors. So it's an ongoing thing to practice. We can practice alone as individuals. We can practice together, two humans or in a group. I brought 2 examples I'd like to use both personally and also when I work with teams and people. The first one is for practice alone first. It's kind of a vocabulary for emotions and needs. And sometimes I have a printed version in my daily journal, in my notebook, and I can enlarge my vocabulary, what I'm feeling. And when I get asked from a colleague, oh, how was your weekend, or how are you today? I have more at hand than good, bad, maybe happy, joyful, sad. I have a little bit more. We can also practice together. Like I said, when somebody asks, you have maybe more words at hand. And the second one is the mood meter. Somebody has already seen that in a work setting? Yeah, I see some slight noddings. So it's from the University of Yale developed, and there's a different emotion words. And the idea is when I work with a group or with a team, and we check in before we do what some people call the real work, so the thing we want to work on, we check in. We take a pen and a paper, write our names on it, take a moment to think, how are we feeling right now? And then everybody sticks their sticky note with a name on a word of feeling what's currently there. And we don't need to discuss it, and we don't need to justify it. We just make visible what's there in the room anyway, because we cannot hang our emotions like a cloth on the wardrobe before we enter the office. Then we do the work we want to do. So, coming back to our today's context, IT, organizations, software craft. Here's another probably also well-known definition of sustainable pace. It's from Agile Alliance. They have a definition for sustainable pace on their website. And maybe it's needless to say in this audience that we should not look just for the symptoms and treat the symptoms, but look for underlying causes, find them and remedy and relieve those. So my takeaway when I was doing the research for this talk is look at systems here. So, systems, not symptoms. And I am by no means an expert in systems thinking. And when I was preparing that talk and I was seeing who else is coming to the conference, I was thinking, should I maybe omit the systems thinking part because I'm not an expert? And we could also have separate talks, classes, studies, whole conferences in that vast field. Yet everybody needs to start somewhere, I figure. And so I had to start also getting into systems thinking. And this is my book recommendation for this talk, the only book recommendation, by the way. This is, in my point of view, a very nice starter, very small also, the book from Donella Meadows, Thinking in Systems. And it's truly a primer in its best sense, I would say. So why this book, and what does it have to do with sustainable pace? There are 3 properties it says that strong systems have. It's resilience, it's an ability to self-organize, and it's also a tendency to build hierarchies. So if anybody told you we will get hierarchy-free in an organization, I would say it's more a lie. So, resiliency is the one property I want to focus on today. Why is that? Because in my point of view, it relates a lot to sustainable pace. Being resilient, and being resilient together. We could look at the resiliency from an individual point of view, of course, and that is helpful and it's important too. And it's also not enough. It's not enough for groups or for teams or organizations or even beyond to thrive. And I think most of us work with people or work for other people or rely on other people or all of that, so resiliency in the team context. So I took the metaphor of a band. And in easy and for sure not scientifically correct words, I would say it's rock and roll together no matter what. We are a band, we rock and roll no matter what we perform. And what does it mean? It means if we don't have a proper stage, we maybe create one, or we ask where we can perform. If we lack the capabilities to rock and roll together, to perform what we want to perform, of course we might practice, we might learn. If our crew isn't complete, if we might have no people who can help us build a stage or do the lighting or the sound, well, we could improvise, we could do it a cappella, we could reduce our set we want to perform and rock and roll on, we could hire people, we could hire them to teach us, so that we have the proper tools, the proper instruments, the crew complete, everything we need as a team to go together at a sustainable pace indefinitely. How do we know all of that? Well, to notice what's missing or where we can develop, to check our progress, to maybe also adapt our path towards a vision coming more to the work context again, to have a vision at all, to see if it's lacking. For all of that, we need different sorts of surprise feedback loops. Well, John Dewey already said that we don't learn from experience alone. We do learn mainly from reflecting on experience. And I really like that, because how many job ads out there are calling for experience X, Y, Z years? But usually we should be looking for the experience we got out of reflecting on that experience, and not just the plain exposure of experiencing something. So once we notice, individually or in a team or organizational or beyond, once we notice we have a problem, I bet the problem already persists for a while. And that can lead to overwhelm, because once we start looking for problems and noticing, oh, we have one, maybe we see more problems. And maybe we see harder problems to solve. And that can lead to stress again. And when we do not do conscious feedback loops in some sort of style regularly, we notice later. And the later we notice, the harder it can get to get back into what I call the resilient state again. And to recap, a resilient state is a state where we are able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely together. So when I was digging and doing research, I came to the conclusion that resiliency is kind of an agile framework agnostic term for sustainable pace. Well, now what, you might ask yourself? Well, we now know resiliency is important for organizational systems. That might be nothing new at the second day of this conference. And we know that for resiliency, we also need feedback loops. Well, when I'm doing consulting with teams or coaching, even then, people almost always come and ask me for tools next. And sometimes I get asked for takeaways, neatly packed takeaways. And I have to confess, when I'm going to a conference talk, I'm also looking for takeaways. And sometimes I'm looking for tools to just apply and then maybe have instant sustainable pace. Well, sometimes, and I would assume not here in this audience, I get asked, or people want me to bring the one silver bullet. And I know this is a golden bullet, but I didn't find a picture of a silver one. So imagine a silver bullet here. Well, then I always have to disappoint folks, because needless to say here, but there's no such thing as a silver bullet. It's no silver bullet out there for the hard tech skills. And there's also no silver bullet for the even harder professional human skills. Fostering sustainable pace in an organization, in organizational systems, for me it's all about seeds. It's about sowing seeds, and it's about tending seedlings. We want to grow more. We want to plant and grow something together and tend something together. And by no means we do not want to kill or destroy something. And I would go even beyond not killing even our competitors, I hope. I think the market for plain old competition should be over, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, I'm here today, so not to offer you tools, but I'm here to offer you seeds to sow. to make a sustainable pace more likely in your organizational context you're in, to maybe also offer you already some seedlings you can plant and grow and nourish to make sustainable pace more likely in your environments. I brought 5+1 seedlings with me, and they are sorted into these 3 different levels of this very simplified organizational system. And we already had the number 1 seedling when I told you about awareness of emotions and needs, and that a constant practice is supporting sustainable pace. I put it on the individual level because it's good to start with ourselves, and of course it's also reflecting on the team level pretty quickly. And as we saw, feedback loops are important also for ourselves as individuals, and my body is giving me now feedback that it needs a drink. We saw that because we reflect on experience, and that's the important part. As we saw, feedback loops are important. I have to say a little warning, because maybe I'm not as well known here as in Germany or in Switzerland, where I'm coming from, and in the communities I've been contributing to the last years. But those who know me already, maybe from social media, they know that my talks usually and meanwhile always contain traces of business journaling. Why is that? That I cannot and I don't want to do a session without a pinch of business journaling. Well, I did it now for almost 20 years, even though I didn't know of the journaling, the writing stuff down benefits back then. I also didn't know how it's related to business. I just did it somehow, triggered by my coach back then. But meanwhile, I am convinced myself of its benefits. I work with teams and with people in the teams and the organizations who give me feedback that it works mostly for them also. I'm doing coaching and consulting in the field, and I did some research when I did a bachelor on mindful leadership and also journaling and writing down. So I really, meanwhile, I am convinced that it works, and it takes a lot to convince me with these things. And so I want also to give you that seedling as well. But how is it related to feedback loops, you might now ask? Journaling, isn't that book you might do as a small child and maybe just as a girl? They have this diary thing. Well, I also like to call it regular written self-reflection. And so it doesn't need to be daily, as the journaling might imply, but some sort, somehow regular. Some people do it just once a week, and that's okay too. It's all about written individual feedback loops, I would say. And drawing more on, okay, I promised just one book recommendation, but this is a small one. Ryder Carroll, who wrote the book Bullet Journaling, you might know it. Is anyone in the room who have heard of that? It's like 11 years old already, yeah. And I really like that part of his book that he says, writing stuff down, it adds a deliberate friction. Deliberate friction is the key for me here. And that's one thing that really enables sustainable pace, or can enable sustainable pace in the long run. And he proposes bullet journaling more as what I see also as a framework we can take stuff from. So it's not about having a beautiful handwriting and all the stuff you might see out there in the internet. It's more about getting the healthy distance, having this deliberate friction to slow down and consider yourself what you task yourself with. Well, is it for everybody? Some sort of journaling, some sort of business journaling? No. Because it's also not a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet. It might not be for everybody, or I would even say it might not be for everybody right now. I had a couple of people who said, I try it, then they left it, and then they picked it up again sometime later. That's all okay. It's just one more individual seedling I want to offer you today to take with you. You might now encounter thoughts in your brain like these. Sounds nice somehow, but I want more guidance on that. And here's one shameless plug I want to make. I started writing on business journaling earlier in this year because I had so many things in my head, so many out there on social media, so many stuff I wanted to put somewhere. So if you're intrigued now, you can go on businessjournaling.substack.com and subscribe or just read. It's free. And if you fancy, give me feedback what you want to read, because I really want to grow that thing more, writing stuff on how to do business journaling and what are its benefits. Well, you also, or you might yourself now catch thinking, this is a pretty way too abstract for me right now. Sounds nice, but way too abstract. So I got you covered too. I brought a third, and I think more tangible seed for you. I called it the WIN manual, and WIN stands for what I need. WIN user manual, I called it, because it's for you, how to kind of use yourself, kind of, yeah, a manual. And it is a nice and one-time exercise. It's also written, so you also need a pen and a paper. Okay, you can also do it digitally, but take a pen and paper. You can print a template on my webpage, or you can just do it like it's shown here. The idea is to take some time and sit down once and write down for yourself what you really need on a daily basis, what you really need on a weekly basis, what you really need on a monthly basis. You could also add then what you need a couple of times per year. And plus, the last point is very important, what is really not helpful for you at the moment. You could do it, of course, focusing on your whole life. Take one page of paper and do it with all that comes to your mind right now, be it work, be it private, be it whatever. Well, some people find it easier to just focus on maybe work or maybe on the private life, or some do it on 2 separate pages. If I had an advice, I would start with 1 page and write down whatever comes to your mind. But as you see, you have different possibilities to do it also separately, and start with that one area, and if you figure it's useful, then you could do it for the other one. 2 important points. There's no such thing as perfect, so take a time slot with 20 to 30 minutes, treat it as a living document. So you do it today. You might have noticed there's a date in my template. So as of today, what you need daily, weekly, monthly, and what's really not helpful for you. And the second part, do a feedback cycle with yourself. So if you sit down, fix a retro date with yourself, a small date, maybe in 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 15 minutes where you revise what you wrote down, what you learned, what it might have helped you, what you might want to adjust. Maybe you find, a couple of times per year I might need a break of a 3-day weekend or something like that. So you might be learning something. You might build some resiliency out of that individual feedback cycle. Wow. Now, I also had a promise in my abstract. I promised you pieces of psychology and about stress and coping with stress. And we already had stress earlier in this talk. Anybody recall it, where we had the stressors already? I see a slide nodding. So when we were having the emotions and the needs, stress can get in the way. I brought a stress theory that is called conservation of resources, or in short, core theory. And I brought it because it's one of the more recent one. It's from Hopful. He built it in the 90s. And he built also on research from other researchers who came before. And I just have time for explaining it very briefly, so it's by no means what you find in a psychology book, but I find it really helpful as a mental model to think about it. It starts with the resources. We as human beings, we all strive for resources. So there are some usual resources, I assume, for us in our part of the world listed here, like food, money, relationships, connection to other humans, knowledge, also recognition of our knowledge in our work environment, usually time. What's missing there is health, for example, also. All of that can be resources that we as humans strive for. Then there's stress, as I said, or to be more precise, stressors. So stuff that is impacting our perceived pool of resources. And the important part is that it's the perceived pool. So, of course, we can measure time. We all have 24 hours. We can measure money, okay, but then it gets fuzzy pretty quickly. So it's how we as a human being perceive our pool of resources. And the stressors, all sorts of stressors, maybe in our families, in our work, with our friends, what's going on in the world, what we might have experienced in the past, hardships or things that we regret or whatever, or even traumatic experiences, all of that can impact our pool of resources. Impact can be the good kind of stress. Then we feel energized when we have a challenging goal. And this is very individual. Not everybody feels energized because of some sort of challenging goal. Then we have the bad kind of stress. This is called the distress. This is what we usually mean when we say we are stressed. This exhausts us quickly. This is what we judge as bad usually. It feels often like a threat to us. This is like the kind of stress. That one. So this is distress. The other one, the good part, is eustress. But usually we don't distinguish it. But for this model we need it because, surprise, there are two feedback loops as well. Our judgment of the stressors, that highly depends on how we perceive our pool of resources. So how we perceive how the pool of resources will be developing. Will it be growing? Will it be shrinking? And I brought an example. Imagine if you invest time in a meeting and you feel you got insights, you got work done, you may be connected with people in the meeting you wanted to connect with, then it could be more the eustress because you won more resources, you got stuff done, you kept resources, you didn't waste your time, you connected with people, stuff like that. Other part of the example, when we invest time in a meeting and we feel that we lost the time, that we maybe got even more work shoved on us, that we did not maybe feel seen or appreciated, that we could not contribute, that we maybe even didn't dare to speak up, that we cannot contribute and ask to leave, then it's more the distress because we lost resources, we lost time, maybe we lost our recognition, some part of that. We feel like we made a bad investment of our time resources. So this is very briefly the conservation of resources theory and how stress plays onto our pool of resources. This model on stress and coping and also motivation, because if we are aware of that, we can also see what motivates us. It can be helpful for us as individuals and can also play very well with those seeds I offered you. We can reflect on that with a pen and paper regularly. We can get insights when we do the Win manual, and we can also get insights if we get aware more of our emotions and needs in general. Now, we looked a lot at the individual level. And I now want to switch on the team level. I brought 2 more seedlings, because usually we don't work all alone. And I also promised stuff for teams, and this is where the music plays, because dealing with ourselves and managing ourselves is sometimes hard, but working and living and interacting with other people can be hard too. So, the first one I brought is a variation of the What I Need manual. I call it Team Win, in short. Maybe you got your already thinking when I introduced it individually that sounds okay, but maybe we could do it on a team level. And then you're right. We could perfectly do it as a team-based user manual too. And I'm very well aware that out there are also user manuals for teams. So the ones I found are usually more focused on work modes, for example. Please don't disturb me when I have headphones on. Please use Slack first before calling me, stuff like that. And this is also important and helpful. This win for teams is a little bit different. And there are two different modes how we can do it. You see on the left more of the individual win manual, so everybody can do it on themselves. On the right, you see a modified version of the individual sheet. And this is where we treat the team as a separate entity, or the relationship we have in the team as a separate entity. Sounds complicated maybe on first sight? Could be. For that, I brought an example. So imagine we have a team, 6 people. So Sam, Fran, Deb, Tom, Tim, and Chris forming a team. Now, what I usually do with the people, or offer them when they want to do that, everybody does the What I Need manual for themselves. I introduce it to them like I did before with the one slide. Then we have questions. And then we agree when will we have it done? Usually a week is enough. So that's the first important point. We need to do it asynchronously. There's no point in getting all in the room, explaining it, and giving them 60 minutes to do it now. Not everybody likes that, and everybody needs to do it in their pace, and some people might want to talk with a good friend or whatever. So introduce it, and then agree when everybody has it done. Now imagine a week later, everybody has it done. We meet again in the team. Everybody already had their insights, the small bulbs in this picture. And now we meet and we share. And we share by one person is sharing and the others are listening. So it's not passing our papers around and everybody can read anything. No. It's everybody shares what they want to share, what insights they gained when they did their What I Need user manual, what they need daily, what they need weekly, what they need monthly, what they don't need or what they can't have at all. And lots of listening is involved there, or should be involved, as the team gains slowly insights what everybody needs to be the best at work they can in this current team in this moment. So the second seed on the team level I want to offer you is listening skills. And that's not just merely using our ears. I mean true listening skills. For me, that is listening to understand another human being. It's not trying to find a spot where I can jump in with my stuff. This is not listening. This is also using my ears, but that's not the listening what I mean. It's also not doing stuff on the side, like, I'm listening, can listen, huh? No, this is also not listening. Side story, I once had a boss ages ago. I was very fresh after university, and he had, I think, good intentions. He did one-on-ones with us software engineers. And when we entered his office, he said, yeah, come in, close the door, start already talking, I'm just finishing something. Back then, I just felt strange. Now I know I would suggest him, please, let's make it shorter, 5 minutes, but I really want you to listen to me, truly. This is the true listening, being fully present. And that's what we want to practice with the people in the team. You might now also noticed in this example that another small circle appeared on our team oval. This stands for a person that's doing the facilitation role in that context. A person that's not part of the team, that's coming outside. Because you can imagine if everybody shares their insights and listens to each other, then dedicated facilitation is really helpful. Somebody being there, making sure every voice is truly heard, helping the team practice their listening skills, helping them to grow the trust and the empathy and the understanding by sharing and listening. One person is talking, the others are true listening. And now everybody on the team experienced already on their own how it's like to do the what I need manual. Then they gather for the what we need as a team as a next step. So they do a separate page and think, what do we need as a team daily, weekly, monthly, maybe also sometimes in a year. Could be, for example, if you're a remote team that you meet maybe twice a year. And also what is not helpful for us as a team. So they work on one thing together. Now, dedicated facilitation is even more important here in my point of view and experience. Anybody has an idea why that is? Well, I can resolve it. Imagine everybody of those 6 people in the teams bring their needs and emotions with them, and they all have it because we cannot get rid of them. Some might be already aware or might be aware, some might not because they may be stressed. Also, the team may be stressed in that example. There might be stressors on the team. They might be having a deadline. They might be having changes in the organization. What happens in a usual organization, I would say? There also might be people who like to talk a lot. Then there might be people who like to think a lot and might need a bit more time to start talking. And with all of that, that might already look in this simplified visualization a bit messy, and it's just 6 people already knowing them and working together as a team for a while. They now want to work on something together, what we need as a team manual. You might now have an idea and can imagine why dedicated facilitation, a person who's not part of the team, is a good idea. A person who holds the space for them, helps them grow their listening practice. If they allow the person, maybe they can add a training bit, what listening is like. People then can concentrate fully on the work they want to do, and the facilitator will be concentrating on the process. So, I hope I could make it more than clear why the last seat for today is, in my point of view, professional facilitation. And I put it on the company level. I wanted to put a yin-yang emoji there because it's has a lot to do with balance. I didn't have it in my screen set. I chose this, how do you call it? This bulb where you can look into the future, because some people often ask, what do you do as a facilitator? You do some magic. It's obvious when you are not there, but you cannot really explain it. So this is professional facilitation, I would say. It's truly caring for, truly enabling professional facilitation in your organization is also key for a sustainable pace, in my experience, on company level. So build these skills consciously if you have the lever in your context. Find motivated folks who really want to do that. Not everybody wants to do facilitation, and that's okay too. Hire external folks for some time who can help you on that path. Because facilitation skills are beneficial for everybody in the organization, for teams alike, for developers, for leaders, for product people, and also for teams of managers, for example. I have been in so many meetings in my former life as a developer that lacked facilitation. And that's not because people are not willing to do it, or people are too dumb to do it. No, it's people are focused on their work, what they want to do, be it tech work, be it product work, be it whatever they want to do. And they are the experts in their field. So a facilitator is an expert in holding the space for the people, in like holding this lightweight process and paying attention to that. Someone with the skills the motivation and also the headspace for it. So if you find people in your organization who want to do it, aside from their job, which is fine, you need to be aware they need headspace for it. It's work as well. You cannot do as much work as you did before in your usual field. So there we are back at the sustainability. And as you might have already noticed, I could do a whole session on professional facilitation and building these capabilities, but we are nearing the end, and you got 5 + 1 seeds today from me, or seedlings, seeds that everyone can start with, depending on your context and your choice. So not every seed might suit for everyone here alike, and that is okay. The important bit is that change needs to start with ourselves. I think it's needless to say in this audience, but I think it's important enough to say it. And we cannot do it alone. We can just do it together. Together we can sow the more of sustainable pace in our organizational systems, and maybe even a bit beyond. And always keep in mind, there's no such thing as a silver bullet. It's all about seeds. It's about living human systems. There's no point in killing anyone. And if we nourish those seedlings together, if we truly act with care for ourselves, that can be hard at times, and also for others, then we will get our hands dirty from time to time, I have to say that. But it's very, very effective in addressing a lot of these bad examples we had in the very beginning, like overwhelming conditions, blaming people, blaming each other, bashing folks, finger pointing, overtime work, and many more. It's very effective, and we will grow plenty of the other things that we want to see more of in our organizations, I would say, like courage and trust, regular feedback loops, empathy, being human, having respect for each other, even for our competitors, useful products, of course, self-care and care and focus. And that is all I have for today. Thank you for being here. Are there any questions or things you want to add? Yes?
What does the acronym WIN stand for?
Pardon?
What does the acronym, in the user manual, what does the acronym WIN stand for?
What I need. So the question was what the acronym WIN stands for. What I need. Yeah, thanks for the question. What else? Yes?
More of a thought, but I thought maybe that's something interesting coming out of it about true listening. And my thought was that for some of us, it takes a lot of effort to give undivided attention to something.
Yes, it takes a lot of effort to give undivided attention. Yeah, true. Or true is already a judgment, but for me is as well, and it can be for lots of us. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Because otherwise, I think we're done with the time, and I'm in the hallway, and I will be providing the slides in the Slack the next days. Thank you.